Of the E-Reads podcast. I'm your host, Liz, and I'm a therapist, author, and creative wellness coach. And this is my podcast where I talk about wellness and creativity with friends, authors, creatives, and just anyone interested in the intersection between wellness and creativity. And today I have Hady to join me to talk about advocacy as well as her book. And like, if you are creative, you know you have to advocate for yourself, whether that's about your rate, whether it's about your book cover, contracts. There is a lot of advocacy. And so I'm really interested in getting some tips and strategies from her. But before I bring her up, let me go over some quick announcements. So really brief. Check out on the website the events. I'm going to do a lot of book signings the second half of the year, so I might be coming to a place near you, so make sure to check those out, as well as catch up with the latest episodes of the E-Reads podcast if you have not already done that. And I think welcome and hope you're doing well. How are you?
Hola, how are you?
I'm good, good. Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself to folks listening who may not know you yet.
Okay, cool. Well, Liz, it's so nice to meet you first and foremost. So thanks for having me on.
Of
And hello to your
course.
audience. I'm Hady Mendez. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. And last year I wrote a book called Calladita No More, My Latina Journey and the Lessons That Shaped Me. And it's a book, it's a love letter. It's a love letter for Latinas and women of color and anybody who struggles with claiming their voice, reclaiming their voice and owning their narrative, and might be tempted to play small when they really should be playing big.
Oh, I love that because I think many people, right, whether it's on your entrepreneurship journey, on your personal journey, all of that, sometimes it can be easy to play small. It can be sometimes scary to open up.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious, like, did you always kind of know to be a flower and open up? And I will go on mute, mute while you're talking because Preston is not happy with the dog that's nearby. But please
So
share a
good.
little bit about like how did you know this was a play this was what you were supposed to talk about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say that it really came from my own journey. So I wouldn't say that I was calladita. Calladita is probably an exaggeration. So it's not that I was quiet,
And
but
what does that word mean for folks that don't know?
oh, yeah, good call out. So calladita means quiet or like silent. And I would never say that, I would never kind of describe that myself that way because I did speak up. I just didn't speak up in front of like the right people. Like I would go to my friend and be like, "Girl, did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he said that we need to do? Or did you hear like the thing, like the new thing that we're supposed to do?" Like I would say things, but I never pushed back in the moment to the people that were making the decisions or in the situations where it mattered. And so, lots of times I didn't get promoted. I didn't get like the money that I deserved. I didn't get good assignments. I was like, just things happened to me and I just never pushed back. I just was like, I don't know, like a bump on a log. And I feel like some of that came from my upbringing. I'm Latina. I think we're raised to be pretty nimble and just like kind of go with the flow and don't push back and just kind of, be grateful for the things you have and don't cause any waves. And I feel like some of it came from that. And some of it really, truthfully, came from me just not having the skills. Like I wanted to say something, but I knew if I said something, it was going to be nasty. And I was like, I need the skills to just be like professional about this and say, well, tell me more about why you're saying that. I'm curious. Like, please say more. And so I had to learn that. And I like I had to like observe people and be like, how are they doing it? Because I don't know how to do it. So I'm gonna learn from the other people. And then eventually I learned because I feel like, yeah, I had to manage like the emotion behind it and be like, okay, Hadi, you can't get emotional every time. Like, that was something that I would get as feedback is like, oh, like doesn't take constructive criticism very well. Then it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, how do I improve that? How do I take it with grace? And how do
Mm-hmm.
I ask questions so I can really get better? And so it was, kind of work in progress, but I knew after I had all that experience, and we're talking about like over 20 years of
Mm-hmm.
experience in corporate, learning how to navigate, I was like, I have to tell other people how to do this because it's not going to be good for people to have to learn this on their own. Like if they can learn it sooner, it'll be better for them and their careers.
Yeah, I love that. And like so much of what you said makes me excited because communication really is a muscle and it is a journey. And I love that you didn't say like you went from being weak to strong because sometimes quiet is also a strength. Sometimes quiet is a choice. And I think sometimes when we're
Yes.
talking about communication and especially with women, sometimes it can conjure an image of it has to be loud, strong, big, bold. And communication can be varied, but making sure you're choosing to lean in versus to lean back is the important
Yes.
thing. So I love how you walked us through what that looked like and like that journey.
That's right. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that, well, sometimes it's not safe to speak up. So that's a real thing.
That's a
And,
real thing.
that's a real thing. So you just have to acknowledge it. It's like, I have my voice. I know what I need to say here, but it is not safe to say it right now. So I'm going to have to choose. Like you said, it's my prerogative. I'm going to choose to remain silent for
Yeah.
now. Maybe it's
Yeah.
a private conversation. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's an offline thing. But like in this moment, it is safer for me to remain silent. And then other
Mhm.
times, you're just creating space for other people. So even though I might have lots of things to say, maybe I'm creating space because other people have things that they need to say, and I want to make sure that they have the space to say it too. So there's a variety of reasons why you would want to stay quiet, but the truth is, like you said, it's a lever, and you just want to
Mhm.
you want to have control of that lever. You and only you should be controlling that lever of turning it on
Yeah.
and turning it off.
Oh, I love that the lever analogy. Yeah, like it is a lever and like I talk so for those who may not know, I'm a therapist by day, right? And sometimes talking about clients, sometimes it is not safe whether it's with a boss or even with family, sometimes you have to make that choice. And so again, I appreciate you talking about the safety around that and as well as again like that choice of leaning in. And sometimes communication is silent. You losing using your nonverbal communication, removing yourself from a room. Communication is not just words, sometimes it is actions as well. And so
Yeah,
communication is such a powerful tool that we have as humans.
1,000%. I'm like it reminds me of like in meetings that I've been at, and it's now like the opposite of what you said. So there's the safety part, and then there's the part where it's going to be uncomfortable. So it's safe to do it, but it's going to be uncomfortable. You're probably not going to be liked. People are going to be like mad that you said the thing, and
Yep.
sometimes you have to say it anyway. So that's a
Yep.
different thing, and discomfort is not the same as unsafe. And
Oh, please tell us, because I love this. Please share with us the difference for folks who may be confused around that. What is that healthy discomfort versus, lack of safety?
yeah, like one thing is like I might feel unsafe because maybe I'm not familiar with the senior leader that I'm about to say the thing in front of. So I just don't know what the consequences might be or the outcomes. I don't know if they're going to come back for me. So like, then it might feel unsafe in that moment to make a decision without having clarity and understanding of the circumstances. The other thing is, I know everybody in the room. They already know because I know, like, I've been in DEI roles where I'm like the fun police. I already know when I walk in that I'm gonna say the thing that everybody's thinking it, but no one wants to say it, and I know that it's gonna fall on me to say the thing. And like I said, it's going to create some discomfort in the room. Some people are going to be very appreciative that I said the thing. Some people are going to be so mad that I said the thing, but I know that it is my role to say it. And so that is also part of like the playbook, if you will. It's just like knowing, like, sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, but say it anyway. And that is when you take your power back. When
Yeah.
you say things in the moment that like maybe other people are afraid to say, and you're going to be brave and you're going to be the one to say it. That I think you walk out of that room feeling more confident and more sure, and more maybe even deeper rooted in the belief that you had. Like, lots of times there's nothing like making you know how you feel about a subject, but besides like you argue for it, and you're like, all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're like, oh my god, I didn't realize I felt this passionate about this darn thing.
Yeah.
But like as I'm getting into it, I'm realizing that yeah, I really do deeply believe in this thing. And I am deeply concerned about like if we move forward, the impact that it's gonna have on other people. And I'm gonna say that. And the chips are
Hmm.
gonna fall where they may. It doesn't mean that you're gonna win every time, but you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta you gotta get your point of view out there. and you got to make sure that is on record that you said this is an issue. Don't think this is a good idea. We're missing a voice in this room. We're missing several voices in this decision. Whatever the case might be, you got to put it out there and make sure that people are aware of it. Because some people, like, I think they try to play dumb and they try to
Yeah.
act like they don't know that they're not doing it the right way, and you're like holding them accountable, and that's really important.
Absolutely. And I love how, communication can help you realize things about you. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily for the other person, but like you mentioned,
Yes.
you realize, oh, like I was actually bothered because of this thing, this underlining thing, or, and I was concerned about this. Like it gives clarity. And the
Hmm.
other thing that you mentioned is how you feel empowered, even if you say it when your voice is shaky, even if you are terrified, even if you don't know, when you speak up, when you have that urge to do it, you gain so much confidence. And again, you build that muscle to be able to do it. So maybe next time you're not as shaky. Maybe next time you're not as hesitant, but like you have to over and over and over build that sense of advocacy.
1,000%. I would also say that for those people in the audience that are wondering, like, when do I speak up? Like, how do I know that I'm supposed to be speaking up? I would say that that also is a muscle, and you have to,
Hmm.
over time, you learn to see where maybe there's some inequity or
Hmm.
something, a passion, something that you feel strongly about, or, maybe you're like plus one someone else who's, underestimated or being underrepresented in some way. And you're like,
Hmm.
hey, I just want to like show up for these other people. But I think you're going to discover over time what you feel passionate about. And the truth is that sometimes it's like, I know as an example, when I was in a DEI role, once I got used to seeing inequities, like I couldn't unsee them. Like they were everywhere. And they just like kind of like, here we are again. And they like just pop up in a lot of different places. And so I always knew that like that was my job, officially. Like I was getting paid to manage diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it was
Hmm.
technically my job to speak up and say, well, I actually don't think that is an inclusive practice, or I don't think that that is going to provide people with a sense of belonging, or, whatever the case might be. So I didn't know in the beginning, lots of times, like I was like, I think I feel something, something in my body, like my gut just like
Hmm.
did, "Rah," something happened. But then over time, like I was like, nope, I gotta jump in here because this is actually my stuff. And I need to, I need to make sure that my point of view again is out there, it's on record, and that people understand that they will be held accountable when things when if they proceed down this path, knowing that we, certain people including myself may have objected to it. So I think a lot of the self advocacy, one is that you're speaking up for yourself, but the other thing is that you're holding people to account. You're making sure that people know, it's like, you're my manager, you have to advocate for me,
Hmm.
sir, madam, like, like that, I work for you, like that, you're like gonna be next to me, you're the person that is supposed to be advocating for me the most. So then it would hold true that then you should be having very like you should be having conversations, frequent conversations with your manager,
That's
if
right.
you want to get them to advocate for you. Like that's just, and they should know like what your goals are, and they should be really clear on the timeline, and you should be able to pick up, your, I don't know, the phone, your email, whatever,
Hmm.
chat message, and say, hey, what about that thing we talked about last time? Like, do you have an update for me? And like, what are the next
Hmm.
steps? So those are some things that like I feel when you advocate for yourself, you also have to know like who are the right people to be advocating with. And your manager is a good example of someone that you should always be advocating. You should be always going be able to go to them for whatever it is that you need. Like that's a one that is really obvious and known. And then you have to understand the dynamics of who else can help you and who else can show up for you and who else maybe likes you. And that, I think that's an important part of the equation too.
Oh, absolutely. Like, um, I will tie back to that. I'm going to go back and then I'll tie because you said so many good things. But like, I like how you're talking about. learning when to speak up. And I think that reflection is important, right? Like knowing that voice when you were talking about that. And sometimes that comes from after a situation when you reflect and say like, oh, I still feel heavy because I didn't say what I needed to say. Let me go
Yes.
back, let me circle back. But I think
And
you're
you
absolutely
can.
and
And you can.
1000%.
And
Some
you can.
because some people are like, oh well, the moment passed. Go back, say like,
Mhm.
I reflected and I actually did feel
Yes.
a way about that, or I wanted to talk more. Like, go
Yes.
back. Don't think your moment has passed. I don't care. Like,
That's
go
right.
back and like take ownership. You know what? I was maybe afraid, like whatever that looks like, take ownership and explain, okay, why are you saying something now? But I think that is a big myth that like once the moment's passed, you can't go back. So I appreciate that. Um, and then in regards to knowing the right people to talk to, I think like absolutely, I think that's really important, and knowing who you can partner with. It makes me think of Cynthia Revo and Ariana Grande talked about this when they were on tour, and how they said, you know, you will take this one day and I'll take this the other day, because they were aware of the voices and the
Mm,
perspectives in the room, and how if one person's only advocating, what it might look like. And so how do we partner to advocate? And so sometimes
mm.
you need to partner with people when it comes to advocating. And that has nothing to do with, I'll say, weakness or lack of skill. That comes with awareness of the room and the biases or the barriers that may be in the room. And so sometimes you do need to ally with people and know who to talk to. I love how you broke that down. And it makes me think of creatives, right? And like thinking about, who do you advocate on the project? Sometimes we dialogue with people who don't have the um we'll say the power to change or move things, when you need to have a conversation, whether that is with your manager, whether that is your publisher, whoever that is, whether that is with the distributor, but really knowing who do you have to talk to so you can resolve that. So many great gems.
Yes. It's so funny that you talked about it. So we're both authors. And
Yes.
I've been learning about your author journey, just looking at your Instagram. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank
Like,
you.
yeah, you're amazing. And you're
Oh,
like, yeah, like I just love the things that you're doing. But yeah, I mean, talking to bookstores, talking to, like even that, because I mean sometimes they're like, oh well, we're not going to do this, or we're going to push you off
yes.
to, like they're making decisions and they're like poo-pooing you, and you're like, time out. Oh, wait a second. Well, I actually had a bookstore that said no to me last year,
Okay,
and
walk
they
us through that. Yes.
yeah, so I reached out to a bookstore that I really wanted to be in, and I felt like it was like very relevant. It was a bookstore in Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. My book has a lot of Puerto Rican vibes in it, I will say. And so I thought it was like very natural, a natural thing
Right.
that I would be there. And they said no, and they just said, oh, like the timing isn't good, maybe next year. And I wasn't sure if they were blowing me off or not. And then I was like getting in my head, and I'm like, is it because I don't live in Puerto Rico, or,
Mm.
and you might be familiar with this, but there's a lot of Latinos that, don't feel Latino enough, either because they weren't born
Mm.
in the country, or they don't speak the language, or they don't dance the music to the music or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So then I started thinking like, oh, just because I'm part of the diaspora, like that's why they're not like inviting me to come. Anyway, P.S. I was like, all right, I'll just do it next year. Like there's time. So I followed up this year, and I was like, hey, I really want to do it. And, just so like there's a lot, and I started to like explain why I thought it was such a good fit. Anyway, they said yes this year. So I'm going this year. I'm going in the fall, and I'm going to be doing an event at this bookstore. And that's a good
Congrats.
example of me advocating for myself. Yeah, I went back, and I'm happy that it worked out. And I'm really looking forward to it because it means a lot to me. Like I consider myself, I always say hija de Brooklyn y Puerto Rico. Like I'm the daughter of both places. So
I love
I did
that.
I did my book event in Café con Libros in Brooklyn. So
Yes, I it's
yeah,
such a cute little place. Okay.
yeah, so I had my book event there actually in March. And then now I get to go to Puerto Rico and do something there. So that
Oh,
means a
that's
lot
so
to me.
amazing.
Yeah, and I live in Spain. I'm actually dialed in from Spain right now. And
Oh, lovely.
yeah, I live in Madrid. And so I did an event here at an English bookstore in April. So, I've been getting around. And again, like I just showed up at the bookstore. I'm like, hi, I have a book in English. I just moved here. Like, would you be open? And he was like, well, where's the book published? And like, he asked some questions, and he was like, sure, let's do it. And I was like, let's go. So
Oh,
anyway,
I love no, I love that because sometimes we think communication will be easy or like I just, one time have a conversation and it'd be over. And that would be nice, but sometimes advocacy takes back and forth. Sometimes it takes tenacity. Sometimes it takes resilience. And I hear all of that in your story. You had this goal of like, I want to be here. Like I am as much a part of Brooklyn as I am Puerto Rico, as I am Spain, and really wanting to like you didn't move the goal based on someone
yeah,
else's communication. You said, all right, I'll meet you back here next year. like and I think
yes.
we get so discouraged when communication doesn't go well. And I'm curious if you talk whether in your book or if you have any tips on how do you communicate through the emotion, through the discouragement.
Yeah, I do talk about it in the book, and I have, I guess, a couple of ideas
Mm-hmm.
that I and tips that I can share with your audience.
Please.
I think one is like you need to be very clear on what it is that you want. Like that part's really important because before, you start just like spitballing and throwing whatever sticks at the wall, it's really important to know like have the clarity about what it is that you want. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's very important. I think the other thing is, like we talked about earlier, being curious, leaning in, having confidence, like just going for it, saying that talking to whomever is the right person about what it is that you're hoping for. Knowing that that person can say no, and
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't mean that the door is shut forever. It could be a temporary no, like me with the
Mm-hmm.
bookstore in Puerto Rico, or it could be like for forever. Who knows? You don't know in that
And
moment.
that doesn't mean your communication was bad. That just wasn't the
It
right
doesn't.
person.
Correct. It might, that door might be closed or shut for a reason that we don't know now. That maybe six
Mm-hmm.
months from now is going to be clear to us, or maybe we'll never know why. But I would say that's something to take into consideration. And I think you need courage. Like you said before, you might be a little shaky. Your voice might sound like you're scared as you're asking it, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. I also
Mm-hmm.
would say that understand that the soil needs to be fertile when you're advocating for
Mm.
yourself. And sometimes some people are not fertile soil. They're just not.
Right.
And they're just,
Right.
they're always going to be a no, or they're always going to be a barrier, or they're always going to like poo poo, like, be a party pooper. And that just means that that environment or that situation is not one that's going to work for you. And so,
Absolutely.
I've
You
been in
learn
work.
so much about where you don't want to be through
Yes,
communication.
yes. I've been in work situations where, they're like, no, you're not going to get promoted, or no, you're not going to get more money, or no, we can't make that thing happen. And it's not even like, oh, but we can make it happen in 6 months, or,
Correct.
oh, if you do this thing, then we can do that. They're just like, immediately no. And like, it does not feel, and like the conversation feels pretty much like open and shut. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, was that a bad day for that person? Let me try again. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying give up and just, we're not in the position, most of us, to walk away from jobs and situations. We
Correct.
got to keep trying. So just understand that you might get a, like, what sounds like a big fat no, and you might need to, in Spanish, we say encontrarle la vuelta. Like you might have to figure it out and be like, okay, is it like next year that it'll work? Or is it like 6 months from now that it's going to work? Or is
Exactly.
it that I need to pass a test or get a license and then it'll work? Like, just could we be a little bit more clear on what is it going
Mm-hmm.
to take for the thing to work? And if you're still getting like, no, we're not talking about it, shut it down, like that type of thing, then I think
Absolutely.
you have a decision to make, and the decision is, am I going to continue down here? Like I have had coaching clients that are like, I've been here 13 years and I still haven't got promoted, and I'm like, and girl, you will not be getting promoted. Like, let me tell you, like 13
Mm-hmm.
years, it does not look like that's in the cards for you. So you might
Mm-hmm.
want to go somewhere else. Like, so
Absolutely.
that's the truth. That's the reality of the situation, and it could be true for a work, like a work situation. It could be true for a partnership or a relationship, a friendship. It could be true in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of situations. Like, but if you're not getting like cooperation, and like I said, people
Mm.
could have bad days or have bad moments, and we're gonna give people grace. But if you keep going back and you keep getting that same energy, then you have to decide, is this for me? Is this worth it? What are my other options? What else can I explore? And it might, I talk about in the book how Sometimes I had to stay in a company for a year or two that I knew didn't want me there, that I knew didn't was had no plans to promote me. But I stayed there because I said, well, I'm not going to quit and not have a job. I have bills to pay. So I
That's
will
right.
figure, yeah, so I had to figure it out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start exploring my options. It might take me 6 months. It might take me 9 months. This is a tough market. It might take people a year or two to find another
Mm-hmm.
job. So then, then keep the job for as long as you can as you're exploring plan A, plan B, plan C, which could be maybe I get a side hustle, maybe I start my own
Mm-hmm.
business, maybe I'm going to get another job. Like there's a lot of things that you can do.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, again, requires courage because it's like, oh, none of these things feel good to me. It's like, I get it. I know.
No, absolutely. And like so many things again that you resonate. Like I love the piece about cooperation. If you were communicating and you're not having cooperation, again, and I talk to again with people like you can do all the right things as far as communication. Sometimes the issue is just the other person, and you have to
Yes.
walk away. And so many times we just stay on that loop and like, well, if I do this, if I do that, if I do that, you've tried it. They are showing you that it's not going to work.
Yep.
Again, whether that be with a publisher, an agent, if you are advocating for something and they still continue to not hear you, you then have to make the choice of do you
Yeah.
stay here because this is the best option, or do you need to advocate internally for yourself and find something outside? And so I
Yes.
think, recognizing that communication requires cooperation is so important
Yeah.
because
It's two
if you,
people. It's two
one
people.
1000%, and I think we forget that, right? We forget that it does take cooperation. It does take that collaboration. I love that.
Yeah. And I would give people words of encouragement that
Yeah.
if you have like a bad conversation, like it's okay. Again, maybe it was something you said, but likely not. Likely it was just, maybe someone was having a bad day, or maybe that's just the way they are, or whatever the case might be. And just kind of dust yourself off and get back on the horse and try it either with that person again at a later
Absolutely.
date or with someone else, because there some conversations can be discouraging. I ain't gonna lie. I've
Mm-hmm.
had those conversations where it just pains me, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
either I feel like I'm doing it wrong, or I feel like this my fault, or I don't know. So some combinations of those things, and in the end,
Mm-hmm.
it was just like I just needed to take take a breath, I guess, take a beat, and then reflect, and again make
Yes.
some decisions and be like, okay, do I want to keep kind of banging my head against the wall, or do I have like some other
Mm-hmm.
options that I can explore, and what will it take for me to explore it? And you move at
Mm-hmm.
your pace. You don't have to move at
That's
anybody
right.
else's pace.
1000%. And as you were talking about that and talking about how, um, sometimes you're not the one with the miscommunication. You never know what someone else is battling, whether it's their insecurity, their bias, their this. And that's why it's important. Give your pitch to a couple of different people. Like with the bookstore, go to a couple of different people, see, and reflect to say, like, okay, is it my approach or is it that person? Because even like, again, like sometimes we talk with people, and whether they're even in our family or people that are close to us, and it's like, well, I can't get through to them or they never see the vision. Maybe it wasn't for them to see it. And like again, like you have to plant that communication seed somewhere else. And so a lot of also what I'm taking away is communication takes reflection both on your strengths, your weaknesses, what you can improve,
Yeah.
and also who you're talking to, so that way you don't continue to meet those same barriers.
That's so true. I feel like I've had moments where I'm like, man, I wish that went better. And it's like, it's okay. Like it went how it went. You could go
Mm-hmm.
back and try to clean it up and be like, hey, and I've had situations where I went back and I'm like, I wish that conversation between us had gone better.
Mm.
Here's what I really wanted you to know.
Oh, that's
And
such a
and I've
great
done
example.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done it. And I've gone back and tried to clean it up. And sometimes I didn't do that. And I just said, what am I going to learn? Because, like you said, I walked away heavy. I knew I didn't accomplish what I wanted to. I felt like I was misunderstood in some way. And so I said, okay, like, let me journal, let me figure out how I want to do that next time. And you just keep practicing because it is a skill and a muscle. And, a lot of us, I don't think, learn how to do this. So we're like learning real time. We're learning as we go. And we got to be
Yes.
gentle with ourselves because it's not going to go perfect every time.
1000. Again, like that is a big thing that I see with people. They're like, well, what if I'm not perfect at this? Like you're not. Like, like that's how you're going to learn and grow, right? And like
Yeah.
every person is different, right? You can be maybe more friendly, more close with one person where someone else they don't enjoy that communication style. And so like you're constantly learning and growing, you're perfecting how you show up. And so like I love that it's a journey, and please share more about your book, and what are the lessons that people walk away when they finish reading?
Yeah. So the book has 12 chapters, and I'm telling stories the whole time of like some horrible shit that happened to me. It's like, believe it or
The
not,
best
this really
teacher.
happened. They're all true stories. Some of them are
I
like
love it.
so sad. I'm like, I can't believe I had to go through that. I still remember the some of those situations so clearly, and they happened 25, 30 years ago.
Mm.
But that's our reality, and so it is what it is. I start off the book saying, listen, the system is broken, we already know that part, so we just have to focus on how we can navigate this system, because it might not be fixed
Mm.
in our lifetime. So like, what can we
You
do?
gotta preach. That's the truth, right? It may not be fixed, so what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Yes.
So a lot of
Hmm.
it is just um like I said, having clarity, building community. Like I talk a lot about discovering your why. What's your purpose? Like, what are you here
Mm.
for? So, like, have clarity around that. And then it makes decisions a lot easier. So then you're like, again, you're just not like doing things and blowing. In the beginning of my career, I went whatever way the wind was blowing. It's like people were like, go over there. And I was like, okay. They're like, now come back here. And I'm like, okay. And it
Mm.
wasn't, I'm not going to say it was a horrible thing, because I was definitely pretty flexible. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I have since become very clear on what I want to do and my goals. And now that I have that clarity, I am not going to go with whichever way the wind blows. Like I have a direction that I want to move in and things that I want to achieve. And so with that knowledge, now I can partner with people. Now I can collaborate. Now I know who to approach. So I mean, like that clarity is very important. Building your community is very important. Like believing in yourself is so important. Taking care of yourself. So self-care, is someone who's a mental health professional, I'm sure you believe that. And I talk
Yeah.
about, yo, my body is my temple. I'm treating myself
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a queen, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever it
And that helps
takes.
with communication, right? Like if you can treat yourself right, it's much easier to advocate. Like, and I think some people forget that communication isn't just about the words, it's the actions you take outside of speaking as well. I love that you
Well,
talked about that.
and it's the feeling of like you have to feel worthy. And I think some of us
Yeah.
have some work to do around that. And I talk about it in terms of confidence and believing in yourself, but it's like, I'm worthy of all of this. I have superpowers. I have things that I want to bring into the world that only I can uniquely bring. So when you are coming and approaching and advocating for yourself from that place, I think you're going to be a whole lot more convincing than if you're like, well, I'm not really sure, but like, I think this would be helpful. And it's like, no,
Yes.
I know what I'm here to do. And like, I need your help to make it happen. And here's how you can help. So like the clarity helps people that are going to help you. It helps yourself. It helps you advocate for yourself. It's like all the way around a good thing. And then, it's really, so this is really fun thing in Spanish, and it exists in English too, but like in Spanish, they're called refranes, and it's like little sayings. So let's say the apple doesn't fall far from the
Yeah.
tree, or like the squeaky wheel gets the oil, or
Yeah.
whatever that saying is. So there's these sayings in Spanish, and I start each chapter with that. So some of the
Oh, I
sayings are
love
really,
it.
yeah, they're really, I think they're very rooted in like culture and like ancestry. So it's like, people would associate these refranes with like their mother or their grandmother, or like a tia or somebody in their family. So it's like I wanted to bring in wisdom from other family members, because I think a
Oh, I
lot
love that.
yeah, I think a lot of first gen people feel very alone, and they're like, I have to figure
Yeah.
everything out by myself. And it's like, well, we kind of have these things that like were passed down to us. And if we take a minute, we might be able to see how they apply to the workplace. Because I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the disconnect is like, well, like, what does, camarón que duerme se lo lleva la corriente have anything to do with me and my corporate life? And it's like, well, let's think about it, because it actually does have something to do with it. And
And what
so
does that saying mean?
oh, camarón que duerme se lo lleva la corriente is like, if you fall asleep at the wheel, you're just gonna like get washed away. Like if you, it's about a shrimp, and it's like if a shrimp just falls asleep, he's gonna get washed away by the water. So what does that mean? If you're not ready, if you're not prepared, if you don't know where you're going, you're just gonna get washed away. So you gotta.
That's so true.
It's a very big it's a very the advice is very much like trying to tell people like know what you want, because when you know what you want, then you can go after the thing that you want. So don't
See,
just
this is
be
why
like
you
a bump
can't
on a log.
discard the ancestors and the people that came. They know. Don't be just because it's 2020. No,
Yes,
they knew that
they
applies.
knew.
Take that
Yeah.
wisdom. Absolutely.
So I use like 25 different refranes in the book
Oh,
because
I
I
love it.
love them, and I feel like they're very rich in terms of like the wisdom that they hold. And again, it's just a reminder that we do have wisdom that was passed down to us. Maybe it doesn't feel super connected to the work that we do or like the spaces we find ourselves in. But if we take a little bit of time to reflect, I think we can make the connection. And then it just, I don't know, to me, it feels extra special.
It absolutely does, because it's not just a book. It's a little bit of history. It's culture. You're giving us so much within these 12 chapters. And before I let you go and ask where we can get the book, how was the writing process for you? Like, have you been a lifelong writer? Did you immediately know what you were going to do? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I am not a lifelong writer, but I like writing, but like I've always been in corporate doing corporate type things. And so, yeah, that was just something that was like on the side that like maybe I journaled or whatever, but like I never really like leaned into it
Hmm.
very much. And then a couple years ago, I had a coach, like a executive coach who was putting together like a book project, and she asked all her former clients, or like, I don't know, maybe not all of them,
Hmm.
but she asked former clients to participate, and I was one of them. And so the book was called Awareness Put Me On, and I wrote a chapter called That Time I Ugly Cried. And so
Mm.
it was about like me becoming aware of how women of color just really we were very disadvantaged in the workplace in so
Yeah.
many ways, shapes and forms, by either getting paid less or like not getting very good feedback, or like getting just not advancing at the same pace, not
Hmm.
represented in senior roles, like just a whole gamut of things. And how there was like I always knew that was my experience. I just didn't realize it was everybody else's experience. So
Right.
it was a real eye-opening moment for me. And so I talked about that. And then, I talked about like how I overcame that. Or at least I started to talk about that. And then so I knew that Calladita No More was going to be like the follow-up to that chapter.
Oh, nice.
And so I ended up hiring a book coach, and that's how I wrote the book. So the book coach helped me come up with an outline, helped me come up with like, hey, what are my core messages that I want to get? Who is my core, like who is really my audience that I'm writing the book for? How do I want them to feel, etc. And then from there, I was able to write the book. And I really love that I got lots of Latinas and women of color and queer individuals to be part of the project. That was my priority. And so, like every aspect of it has somebody from an underrepresented community that worked on the book, and that was the goal.
I love that, because there's a lot of communication books that don't speak directly to marginalized communities, people of color. It is very, just be confident and you'll communicate better. And like, mindset is a part of communication, but
Yeah.
skill and also under the understanding the realities and really processing what that means. Like, so I love that you really thought about who you were talking about. You really lived that experience. And so I
Yes.
think it's going to be a powerful book for folks. And like, how can people support you, find you? How can they purchase the book? Please tell us all the things.
Of course. So the book is available, like there's an audiobook that I personally narrated. That one's my
Oh,
favorite one.
lovely.
Yeah, it's my favorite one. And that one's available on Audible right now. And then I have paperback, hardcover, Kindle version. So that's available on like bookshop.org or Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever your local indie bookstore or wherever you buy books online. So there's lots of places that you can get it. But you can go to my website, calladitanomore.com, and then it has all the places and spaces where you can buy the book.
Awesome. And y'all, that will be in the episode show notes in case you missed any of that. Any upcoming events, we know you will be at the bookshop in Puerto Rico in case folks are listening and they're there, but any other events or things you want to make sure you shout out.
Yeah, I think that's the big one for now. I'm trying to make some other stuff happen, but it's still like not officially there. But the official, I have two events in Puerto Rico. One is in a bookstore called The Bookmark, and I'm gonna be there November 19. And then that same on the weekend, that Saturday, I'm gonna be at a vegan spot in
Oh,
Guaynabo called Body Vegan, and I'm gonna be doing an event there, and then there's gonna be a brunch. So I have two events that I'm very excited about.
oh, so nice.
And
And
my
listen,
cousins,
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I'll just say one more thing. My cousin's going to be my conversation partner, so we're keeping it in the family. So
I'm so happy for you. And like, let me know. I'm just in Connecticut. Brooklyn's not that far. So the next time you do something, let me know.
I'm trying to do something in Harlem, so I will keep you
Oh, yes,
posted. Harlem
please.
or maybe New Jersey. There's a New Jersey pop up in the works and a Harlem potential thing in the works, but it's none of them are final yet.
Very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. Space for like last words, and like if you had to leave folks with homework, like if there's someone out there like I'm struggling with communication or finding my voice, like what is the homework that you would give them?
I would say to take an inventory on the things that they're great at, like really know what their superpowers are. That's always a good thing to know in general. But I think it's a good place to start because you can build from there. So a lot of us focus on like, oh, I wish I had this, or I don't have that, or I'm lacking this. Let's put that on the back burner for now. And let's really focus on the things that we're good at and that make us unique and different, and let's make sure that we have a good inventory of that. And if you have any trouble like uncovering what those are, ask people that are close to you because they'll remind you that, especially your community, they're going to hold the mirror up and tell you exactly who you are. And I think that's really good for you to know as a starting point.
Oh, I love that homework. And like listeners, make sure that you do this in between the episodes because, yeah, as you're building that muscle of communication, sometimes you can only see the weaknesses and your failures, but knowing where your strengths are, knowing how do you compensate as you're building that communication muscle, right? Whether that be humor, whether that's resilience, whatever that is to help you, I think it's such a powerful homework. And I look forward to doing that as well. Hattie, thank you so much for coming and have a wonderful rest of your week and enjoy the weather in Spain. I had a friend that was living over there. She just came back over here.
Did she tell you how hot it gets? Because I'm
Yes,
melting. I'm like, ooh, like a little candle. I'm like, I hope I live through this. But
I'm
thank you.
telling you.
I really appreciate being on the show. And thank you to the audience who held space for us today. I really hope you took something away from the conversation.
I know they did. Absolutely. Be well, everyone, and take care.